We did have a settled life, yes. We had a nice house in downtown Ottawa, and relatives there and friends there, and it was a hard decision to make to leave that and go off to see the world.
What was the reaction or the advice, if you like, of those friends and relatives?
Well, my children, for instance, didn't like that we were the ones running away from home. And our friends, of course, thought that we were crazy to go out the St. Lawrence River and turn left, being north, instead of turning right and going to the Caribbean.
It must also be surely a very expensive business to equip a yacht ready to take off on such a vast voyage.
Yeah, it's a very, very expensive way to live third class.
But in essence, we sort of exchanged a house in Ottawa for the sailboat. They're about equivalent costs, I think.
And where then have you been so far?
Well, we first left Ottawa and went down the St. Lawrence and through the Strait of Belle Isle and went up the coast of Labrador, then across Hudson Strait and over to Baffin Island, up at about 64 degrees latitude, and then stayed in a small Eskimo community of about 900 people, a place called Cape Dorset, famous for its production of Eskimo art. And we wintered over there, found jobs there, and then left this year. The earliest we could leave was August 1st because the ice never went away, and we had quite some difficulties leaving. Almost got crushed by the ice. We were about to launch the boat 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The bay was ice-free, and at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the wind changed and blew all the ice from Hudson Strait back into the bay and just made it chock-a-block full of ice.
Yeah, there was the first supply boat of the season had come in the day before, and they had a very, very difficult time getting out themselves. They ended up trapped out in the outer harbor, but at least they were not in danger out there.
What did the Eskimo people think? These two city dwellers, if you like, arrive on the yacht. What was their reaction?
Well, we apparently were the second sailboat to arrive in Cape Dorset in 40 years.
60, I think.
Maybe it was 60 years.
Yeah.
And the previous one had only beat us by 2 weeks, and that was one owned by Tom Watson Jr., former chairman of IBM, with a crew of 6. And so people, when we came in, they first thought that Tom Watson was returning in a smaller boat. But other than that, they more than anybody else understood what it meant for us to have sailed there, the dangers that were possibly met by us, both in terms of the high tides, 40-foot tides, gales, and things like that.
What is the point of facing those dangers?
Well, there's no point in facing them. We tried to avoid them as much as possible. It's just that we wanted to go to the north because both Helga and I had worked extensively in the Arctic, all over the Arctic, from Canada to Alaska. And we knew, and still know, it's the most beautiful place in the world. And we wanted to see it while we still had contacts there, and thought that we could get there safely.
It sounds to somebody like me who's obviously never been there. You say it's the most beautiful place in the world. It sounds like endless stretches of ice and snow, but clearly it's not.
Oh, it's extraordinarily beautiful.
The mountains are wonderful. The absence of trees is perfect. And the game and the wildlife that you see and the opportunities you have to go out on the land in the winter on dog sleds or snowmobiles, snow machines, and see herds of caribou and huge numbers of birds and all sorts of wildlife.
It's the quality of the light, too. You never see skies that color, just beautiful pastel shades floating by, and the snow and the ice are, I don't know how many colors of turquoises and greens and blues and whites. It's really lovely.
Getting back to the sea then, what would you say you've learned about yourselves and indeed each other being cooped up for days at a time, as you must be?
Well, I guess we first learned about that when we sailed to the Bahamas and back on this boat we built. It was very small. We couldn't even stand up inside. and we lasted for 6 months, and we still liked each other at the end of 6 months. And so we knew that we were fine together that way. Crossing an ocean, which we had never done before, this is our first ocean crossing to here, was not what we had hoped it would be because of the extraordinary weather that we hit, the storms. And I guess I learned that I suffer a little bit from low-grade motion sickness at times, and that
Is that the same as
Helga.
being sick over the side?
No, I never actually got really sick. I just felt queasy at times, and it sort of sapped my will to do things at times. But it wasn't being horribly sick, violently sick all the time. It was something in between.
Yeah, it was very frightening for me to see this high-energy person being just on the verge of lethargy much of the time. That was very difficult to deal with.
Well, the reason, of course, you're in Stornoway, you referred to it really there, is because of an unfortunate experience a little while back. Tell me about that.
Well, the unfortunate experience started when we left Greenland. One day out of Greenland, we hit a force 10 storm that lasted 3 days, knocked out some equipment on board. Then we had 1 day of calm, and then from there on all the way to Scotland, we had gale after gale, 4 gales that lasted long. And when we finally did get to within 30 miles of where we were trying to go, which was Castle Bay, not Stornoway at all, we got hit by another gale, and we had lost most of our water. We used a lot of it, but we contaminated some with salt water that got in through the deck. We still had lots of food, but most of it you needed water to cook it, like rice and porridge and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So our energy was extremely low. We had really been battered about, and the boat was still solid, but a lot of parts of it had gone. Our self-steering had gone. Our wind generator had gone that allowed us to keep the furnace going all the time.
And our engine was non-operative.
That was the major thing. The engine was working, but the shaft coupling had broken, so we had no power. We couldn't actually go anywhere. We could use the engine to keep the batteries up. And then
The sails were starting to rip, too.
we had some sails that went. And then the final blow, I guess, that happened, once we got within 30 miles of Castle Bay and this new gale hit us, we had to take down all sail and just sort of drift north with a special storm anchor. And then on Sunday morning,
At 8:03.
as we were listening to the weather forecast, we got knocked down. How far? Maybe 70, 80 degrees, we're not sure. It wasn't quite 90, but the engine hatch cover on the floor landed on top of us as we were sleeping, as did every dish on board, and
Every can,
a whole
everything.
large container of old yogurt.
But by knocked down, you mean what? The vessel turns well on its side?
Yes.
Yes, we were rolled over. We went down the side of a wave, and the wave didn't come on board, but it rolled us over and opened some hatches in the cockpit, and a lot of water came on board. And of course, for a few moments, I thought we had it, that we were sinking, because I saw this water just coursing through the bottom of the boat. And then we came back upright again. And then when we started to get out from under this huge amount of junk,
We never did hear the weather forecast.
I saw that, yes, indeed, the boat was still okay and the mast was still standing, but we were badly shaken, and we knew we needed to get somewhere safe.
You
quickly.
can laugh about it now, but what is it actually like to live through that sort of experience? It sounds terrifying.
Well, while it was going on, for me, my first reaction is always, okay, here's a problem. What do we do to solve it? I think Helga's reaction is a bit different.
Yeah, I kind of, in the severe emergency like that, I'm kind of not too terrific, but I do recover, and then we tend to work well as a team in terms of what we're going to do.
When one of us is down, the other one is usually up, so there's always coverage there. We complement each other very well that way.
How did you then get into harbour?
Well, that was the difficult decision because for the rest of Sunday, we contacted the Coast Guard. Actually, we'd been in contact with the Coast Guard for about 2 days because David's mother had worried that she hadn't heard from us and had been calling all over Scotland and England looking for us. So they knew Erasmus. But in any case, we started talking to them on Sunday, and they suggested that we try for St. Kilda's, which was, how far north? About
It was
10,
about
15?
6 to 10 miles
Yeah.
away at that point.
And we thought that was a poor idea because we were trying to stay away from land, not try to go near it in those conditions. But we really were, I think, in worse physical condition than we even recognized. And maybe, we were exhausted. And then there was a fishing boat, the Donecala, from Killybanks, Ireland,
Killybegs.
in St. Kilda's, and they began talking to us and said that they would help us to get in and that there was a mooring there for us and offers of hot showers and dinner and all of this stuff. And in any case, we discussed it and realized that if we did try to do that, it would take all of our energy. It was a kind of a decision that if we tried to do that, that was the only thing we could do. And when conditions moderated late in the afternoon, we did decide to try for it and pulled the storm anchor and began sailing for St. Kilda's. But when we got there, it was already dark and conditions worsened again. And, well, to make a long story short, the Donecala came out in absolutely brutal conditions.
About 25-foot seas.
Yeah, around midnight, I guess. Was it around 11 or midnight? And tried to take us in tow. And that isn't a scene that I ever will be able to get out of my mind of this 35-foot boat tossing around in huge seas next to a 110-foot fishing boat with David standing up on the foredeck trying to catch a heaving line. It was a nightmare.
At one point, you would see we'd be in the trough of a wave, and the Donecala would be 25 feet above us, and the top of their deck another 15 feet. So 40 feet up, you'd see somebody very near and looking like their bow could come crashing down on you at any moment. And in fact, we did get hit by them and had our bow smashed a little bit, at least cosmetic damage done to it.
But in any case, they were really heroic. One of them was actually making the attempt to leap onto our deck, which would have been a very dangerous thing for him to do. They did get a tow aboard, and just as we were sort of relaxing, in fact, that's the point that I got hysterical once I thought we were safe, then the tow broke. And so we decided there was nothing more that we could do that night. We were done.
Our energy was completely gone at that point. Our engine had packed in again. I had made some temporary repairs so we could have a bit of maneuvering, but it broke again, and I went to fix it with my head sort of down into the hold in the engine. I got it fixed, and at that point, I could just get a bucket and sit there and heave. And I was exhausted, and I just almost passed out.
Yeah. So these marvelous people told us to go to bed. They said, and they said they would just stand watch for us all night and make sure that we weren't drifting anywhere into danger.
They kept their boat in back of us so that they were shielding us from the weather and the waves, and they provided a bit of a lee for us and just sort of looked after us, tracked us on the radar to make sure that we weren't drifting toward a place called Whale Rock, which is between St. Kilda and the mainland.
Yeah. And then in the morning, they woke us up at dawn with a searchlight, and this time it was we had gotten a little rest. We got a line aboard a little bit more easily, and they towed us 40 miles into a delightful little harbor called Brestclete, which is
Near Callanish. Everyone knows the Callanish stones. So it was very near there, and almost every fishing boat in the fleet was in there, and we were told that they never go in there unless the weather is really extreme. So we know it must have been bad.
And you were able to get around to Stornoway under your own power.
Well, not quite.
we we then stayed in Brestcleat for some days and had people from Stornoway come in and make some temporary repairs to our engine. So when the first clear day came, which was last Saturday, we did go out under power and sail and got almost as far as the butt of Lewis, and there was another clunk and the engine went again. So we sailed around the butt of Lewis and partway down to Stornoway, and at that point the wind just went completely dead, and we got a tow from a fishing boat that was coming back to port.
Named Isabella.
I feel like asking you, David, apart from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? How was the voyage, apart from these sorts of things, and how do you like Stornoway?
Stornoway is just wonderful, and in fact, all the people that we have met here in Brestcleat and Callanish, Stornoway have been just wonderful
That's
to us.
almost made it worth it.
Yeah, it really has. And the people on the fishing boats are just terrific people.
Yeah. Yeah, we were taken in one day by a boat from Bucky named the Speyside A4, and they were absolutely wonderful to us all day while we were waiting out.
They took care of our laundry, getting water for us. They
Food.
fed us and showed us charts, and were very nice.
What are your plans from now then? Presumably the boat is being repaired just now. When do you set sail again?
We'll probably have our repairs finished in a day or two, and then as soon as we get a good weather report, we want to cross the Minch, go to Loch Gairloch, and then down the east coast of Skye and into the canal and to Inverness. And from Inverness, we'll harbor hop down the east coast to about Harwich, I guess, in England. And then from there, we plan to cross over to Belgium, perhaps to Ostend, or maybe to Holland. We're not quite sure yet, and spend the rest of the winter in some very calm canals.
But I find that after this experience, I don't really mind too much where we, I feel much less pressure to try and get here or there. I'm just very pleased to be where I am and making my way along through
We're just
through
glad
Scotland.
to be alive.
Does the journey, though, in your minds have a full stop? Is it returning to Canada, or is it circumnavigating, or what?
No, our plans are very open-ended. When people ask us, we've been saying we're cruising for 2 to 20 years. We don't have unlimited funds, so we build up a cruising kitty by staying somewhere like we did last winter and working, and then we cruise as long as we can on those funds until we need to stop and make some more money. A lot of countries we can't get work permits, so we do writing and magazine articles and things like that.
Well, David and Helga, anyway, thank you very much indeed for describing your voyage so far. In a little while, we're going to be hearing from another couple who are doing something similar. They've been doing it for 6 years, I think, travelling around the world, so we'll hear what their experiences have been as well. Thanks very much from both of you, and the very best of luck in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye.